besloten worden over Griekenland?
Nou, we hebben de afgelopen anderhalve week, intensief gesproken, vooral de instituties met de Grieken, om voldoende voortgang te krijgen, zodat die missie weer terug kan naar Athene. Daar moet nog het nodige technisch werk worden verricht. En we gaan straks kijken of het zover is.
Heeft u nog contact gehad met het IMF? Hoe hoopvol bent u dat die uiteindelijk toch zullen gaan maken?
Ik heb ook contact gehad met het IMF en hun positie is onveranderd. Dat zij in principe gewoon ook formeel in dit programma willen stappen. Waar ze informeel natuurlijk gewoon steeds betrokken zijn gebleven. Dus dat is nog steeds hun intentie. En een voorwaarde is dat er voldoende substantiële hervormingen zijn. Niet zozeer bezuinigingen, maar vooral hervormingen. Zodat Griekenland er weer echt structureel beter voor komt te staan. En die voorwaarde die is hard en helder.
Dit wordt uw laatste als missionair minister. Wie gaat het na 15 maart hier leiden?
Ondergetekende.
Hoe zit dat?
Tenzij de formatie heel snel is afgelopen, maar dat denk ik niet.
Wat dan? Als de formatie snel is afgelopen, wat gebeurt er dan?
Dat weet ik niet. Dan komen we in een onontgonnen terrein. Mijn mandaat loopt in principe tot het einde van het jaar. Maar het zou natuurlijk een nieuwe vorm zijn dat een ex-minister die functie vervult. Dus dat weten we echt nog niet.
Dan gaat u dus vanuit dat u na een formatie in Nederland niet meer terugkomt als minister?
Dat zou ook nog kunnen. Zo ziet u maar, er zijn nog allerlei varianten mogelijk. U weet wat mijn voorkeursvariant is, namelijk dat de Partij van de Arbeid de verkiezingen wint en dat ik op financiën blijf.
U wil heel graag de voorzitter van de Eurogroup blijven, hè?
Ik wil in ieder geval mijn termijn afmaken en dat is tot het eind van dit jaar. Dat is het enige wat ik weet. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
We're back to an accord.
So these were the Dutch guys. Now we talk to the Greeks. Huh?
We can also talk in that if you want. We're back to an accord met Griekenland vandaag. Meneer de voorzitter.
So we've had intense talks with the institutions and the Greek government in order to clear the ground for the mission to return to Athens. And in the Eurogroup we will discuss whether we've come to that point. Because that is my goal, to get the mission back in Athens, on the ground, to talk about all the difficult stuff that still needs to be sorted out. We've covered a lot of ground, so we'll see in the Eurogroup if we've done enough.
And you're positive that the IMF is also on board and the mission will be concluded in time for parliamentary procedures, because that's also an issue.
That's a lot of questions at the same time. So the position of the IMF is unchanged. They are very willing to participate in the program, are in principle prepared to go to the board, but their demand is and always has been that it is a serious program with in-depth reforms and a sustainable debt. So all of that needs to be sorted out before we can bring them on board, definitely. That is my target. I'm not doing this exercise to take another step as Europeans without the IMF. The next step will have to be with the IMF.
Is there a time? Yes, is there a deadline?
Not really. The liquidity issues, as you know, are not substantial and they won't occur until the summer. So in other words, there's no acute need for money. Economically, of course, it's important that the stability which we have achieved in Greece and the recovery economically continues. And therefore it would be useful if it all happens quite quickly.
So you don't see
simply for stability reasons and confidence reasons.
So you don't see any implication from parliamentary procedures? Because you have elections and the French have elections as well.
Yeah.
They need to approve, I suppose, the deal afterwards.
Well, there's always an election somewhere in Europe, so it doesn't stop me, it doesn't speed me up. I want to do it as quickly as possible, but it still takes, I mean, we're talking about complex reforms. I mean, I know from experience in the Netherlands, if you try to do a tax reform and a pension reform and labor market reforms, and you have to do all of these at the same time, that's hard work. So let's be realistic. As soon as we get the mission back to Athens, and that's my first goal, then there's still a lot of work to be done.
How close we are for the mission to...
I'll tell you after the Eurogroup.
What about the
Mr. DIJSSELBLOEM, excuse me.
Nice to see you. On Greece, we talked about the need to get the IMF on that week.
Today we will just discuss to get the mission of the institutions back to Athens. and that requires agreement on substantial reforms and additional measures to be taken. The mission will then go down to Athens, sort all of that out, and by the time they come back, we will look at the whole package, including debt, but it won't be on the agenda today.
So that suggests no conclusion on the Greek bailout today. Is there a sense of urgency here to get a conclusion, though, before the March 15th elections in your own country?
No, it's completely independent of elections. There's always an election somewhere in Europe, so we simply have to keep moving ahead. We've had a lot of talks in the last couple of weeks, so I see progress. I'm going to find out today whether that progress is enough for the mission to return to Athens, and then I think more work will have to be done. But it's a good step, it's a positive step. So let's wait for the outcome of the Eurogroup.
Do you think the lingering Greek debt issue, though, has concerned voters in your country? When you look at your party in the opinion polls, do you think the fact that you are such a symbolic image tied to the Greek problem, is that a concern when you look at your polls?
Not really. A lot of the electorate in the Netherlands supports my serious approach to this issue. So I will continue to follow up on it in a very serious way. And I think it's in our joint interests for the Greeks, the whole Eurozone and the Netherlands that we have a stable recovery in Greece. And that's what we're doing. And anyone who wants to talk about crisis can talk to someone else because the Greek economy is gradually recovering. And what we need to do is to strengthen that and to give that more opportunity. And that's what I'm trying to do.
You've spoken out before that you were somewhat frustrated with the IMF's own economic assessments about Greece. Do you think the rest of the creditors in the IMF are moving closer here, closing the gap on perceptions of Greece? I guess if you can give us a better idea of what it will take to get the IMF on board.
Well, the IMF has been clear right from the beginning that for them to come formally become a part of the program again, they would need serious reforms in the tax system, the pension system, the labor market, and a sustainable debt outlook. As you know, we've taken a number of debt relief measures. The last ones were only last January, another package of debt relief, and we will come back to that at the end of the program. So at the moment we need to concentrate on these deep reforms that the IMF quite rightly asks of the Greek government.
And what happens if the Greek government proves resistant to pass those additional reforms?
I'm not going to speculate. Let's wait for today's meeting. Bye.
Thank you.